means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, what it means to live as complete human, what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal, discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring a return to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal. Discovering that true spiritual excellence doesn't require us to ignore our human hearts, but to embrace them fully. Through the stories of Karbala and the example of our beloved Prophet, we're learning that our tears, struggles, and authentic emotions aren't obstacles to divine love. They're the very pathways through which God's light shines. Join us for 10 nights of healing from the false choice between being spiritual or being human, and discovering what it means to live as complete human beings in service of divine purpose. This Muharram, we're exploring
the microphone. Do you want the stand for the microphone?
I won't hold it.
Okay.
I can't hold the microphone. Yes, I need it.
No problem.
الفاتحة. On the night of Ashura, one wonders what scenario of the Imam or his companions can we imagine. Often poets narrate what might have happened, what might have occurred, but sometimes we want to imagine the conversations that the Imam might have had or Bibi Zainab might have had with the questions. And most of these questions are rhetoric. It doesn't ask for an answer, but it begs us to think of questions. Why? لازم نہ تھا یہ چرخے ستمگر کے واسطے آب فرات شام کے لشکر کے واسطے یارو خیال بے کسی شہ کرو ذرا وہ دھوپ دوپہر کی وہ صحرائے کربلا وہ لو وہ خاک دشت کی وہ گرمی ہوا اس دھوپ میں کھڑا ہے سلیمان کربلا زہرا پکارتی ہے کہ فریاد یا خدا میرا حسین دھوپ کے اندر ہے جل رہا واہ حسین بے وطن آئے حسین بے کفن. I'll ask you to join the refrain. یا حسین بتلاؤ میں ستاتا ہوں یا تم ستاتے ہو میں تو دعائیں دیتا ہوں تم دل جلاتے ہو مجھ کو نہیں رلاتے نبی کو رلاتے ہو یہ تیر فاطمہ کے جگر پر لگاتے ہو، جب ہم نہ ہوں گے تو کس سے تم ستاؤ گے، پانی کسے دکھا کے زمین پر بہاؤ گے، تم نے تو بلایا بھی تھا نہ آپ میں آیا، جنگل میں مدینے سے مقدر مجھے لایا، کھانا بھی کھلایا مجھے پانی بھی پلایا، دعوت تو میری ہو چکی آرام بھی پایا، یا حسین کفن مظلوم کہہ رہا تھا کہ میں پیاسا پیاسا ہوں، اے شمر تجھ سے مانگتا پانی ذرا سہوں، پیاسا ہوں اور خیر نبی کا نواسا ہوں، للہ دے علی اور پیمبر کے واسطے، کہتا تھا شمر پانی نہ دوں گا تمہیں میں، ناحق زباں دکھاتا ہو قطرہ نہ دوں گا میں، صدمہ ہے دل پہ پیاس سے حالت تباہ ہے، وہ بولا تم کو پانی پلانا گناہ، یا حسین حاکم کا حکم یہ ہے کہ پانی بشر پیے، گھوڑے پیے سوار پیے اور شتر پیے، جو تشن لب جہاں میں وہ سب آن کر پیے، حیوان پیے چرند پیے جانور پیے، کافر تلک پیے تو نہ تم منع کیجیو، ایک فاطمہ کہ لال کو پانی نہ دیجیو، آئے حسین گزرے جو گزرے کچھ نہ کسی سے کہوں گا میں، جنگل میں مثل خضر اکیلا رہوں گا میں، میری طرح سے کون یہ صدمہ اٹھائے گا، مظلومیت سے یوں کوئی میرا نہ جائے گا، مکہ مدینہ شام مبارک یزید کو، ملک عرب تمام مبارک یزید کو، یثرب کا انتظام مبارک یزید کو، بے کس ہوا امام مبارک یزید کو، یا حسین تڑپا ادھر جو خاک میں زہرا کا لاڈلا، خنجر بکف ادھر سے بڑا شمر بے حیا، آنکھیں کھلی جو غش سے تو شہ دیکھتے ہے کیا بیٹھا ہوا ہے سینہ زخمی پہ بے حیا بولا کہ اب حسین میں کاٹوں گا اب گلا خنجر میرے لیے ہے میں خنجر کے واسطے رلواؤں گا بطول ان سب کے سامنے کاٹوں گا حلق آپ کا زینب کے سامنے ہے یہ کہہ کے دیش میں آیا وہ بے حیا حوروں کی جگہ ہے لعین نے غضب کیا ہائے میں کس زبان سے کہوں وا مصیبتا سر کاٹنے کو سینہ شبیر پر چرا افلاک کانپتے ہیں زمین تھر تھراتی ہے زینبا کی حلق سے آواز آتی ہے دریا برو دیا سمندر برو دیا نازک گلے کو دیکھ کے خنجر پرو دیا ہے میں کس زبان سے کہوں آ مصیبتا احمد کے بوس گاہ پہ خنجر پھرا دیا وائے حسین بے وطن سورۃ الفاتحہ
This is a poem that my Nana used to share during Muharram, and my Nani shared it with us this year, so I thought I would share it with you all. To create a revolution to benefit humanity is following in the footsteps of Imam Hussein. To foster solidarity so that truth prevails is following in the footsteps of Imam Hussein. To unite to uphold human rights is following in the footsteps of Imam Hussein. And in summary, to practice perfect humanity in the form of doing good deeds is following in the footsteps of Imam Hussein. Long live such following, and may such following live forever. But what purpose is served by merely making such proclamations, and what falsehood is crushed by just such utterances? In reality, Hussein does not need people who only lament on his sufferings. He needs those who provide solace to the sufferers. Hussein does not need drinks and feasts in his name. He needs your acts of kindness towards those who are in need. Yazid, who was morally defeated by Hussein, is rising again. He lurks in treacherous luxury, and he stays in surroundings of cunning falsehood. Yet again is Yazid thumbing his nose to the truth, and yet again is he twisting the neck of humanity. And therefore, yet again, Hussein needs those who are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for the sake of principle. Yet again, Hussein needs the likes of Abbas and Akbar, and yet again, he needs the likes of Qasim and Askar. Yet again, Hussein needs the likes of Aun and Muhammad, and yet again, he needs the likes of Mazahir and Hur. O ye who go flying around the banner of Hussein, can you not hear his long-standing call for help? Is there anyone among you who can say, Ya Hussein, here I am, ready to answer your call? Thank you. Salawat.
Truly beautiful, Lena. Thank you so much. Now we'll have a youth presentation by Sisters Aria and Inaya Nakvi. Sorry, just before we get started, could I ask if any of the small children want to move up to the front here? We've just kept a rug, and there's lots of space here in the front, and you'll benefit from being closer to the stage. Yeah, the carpet is laid. Please, let's take a minute just to do that. I know we have a full house today, so we're trying to make the most of all what we can do. Follow up, please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Arya. Today I will read a surah to you in Arabic and English. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Kul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Now I'll read it in English. Say He's Allah, the One. Allah is eternal and absolute. None is born of Him, and nor was He born, and there is none like Him.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Anaya, and today I want to talk about someone who is a true role model in Islam, Bibi Zainab. She was the daughter of Imam Ali and Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, and she was also the granddaughter of our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. She was kind, intelligent, patient, and brave. From a young age, she was known for her strong faith and her deep knowledge of Islam. She had memorized the entire Quran by heart, and she as well as memorized many of the Prophet's sayings of education and Islam. Bibi Zainab was considered to be one of the most worshipping women of Imam Ali's household by many Muslims. She lived a wonderful and impactful life that even today is still very relevant and very meaningful. But what really shows her greatness is how she acted during one of the hardest times in her life. And the time I'm going to talk about today is the slaughter of her family in the Battle of Karbala. In Karbala, Bibi Zainab saw her brother, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and many other loved ones get martyred. She watched as Imam Hussein's so-called followers left him for safety. She watched as the women and children died of thirst and saw the hopelessness and despair as she tried to remain strong for them. In a short period of time, Bibi Zainab lost her family, her home, and her safety. She even lost her two beloved sons, who were only young kids forced to fight in a harsh battle. But even in that moment of pain and loss, Bibi Zainab followed the path of her father and prayed to Allah for guidance and courage. She stayed strong and cared for the children and women who were left behind. When the battle was over, Yazid and his army forced the women and children to walk all the way to Syria in the rugged conditions of the desert. When they arrived, they were forced to walk around the city to embarrass and humiliate them. Even though they were being treated horribly and being locked up, Bibi Zainab spoke out about what happened. She told the story of Karbala and the injustices that took place to anyone willing to hear the truth. Because of her, we still know about the sacrifices our imams made for Islam. Bibi Zainab was so strong during this time, for she had witnessed such brutality only a few days before being imprisoned and being treated as if she was a rebel. Just like Bibi Zainab, we should speak out about injustice and help those who need it. Muharram is a very important month because it shows the sacrifices that the prophets, imams, and bibis made in the name of Islam. They struggled and fought against oppressors to make sure Islam would continue the right way. During this month, we should remember them and what they did. We should mourn and be thankful for their sacrifices. Muharram teaches us about courage and standing up for what's right, no matter how hard it is. Bibi Zainab's story is not just about sadness, but about devotion to Islam and the strength that it takes. Learning about her helps us understand the importance of fighting unfairness and being kind in our own lives. Even after everything that happened to Bibi Zainab, she became a symbol of faithfulness, kindness, and courage. She helped keep the truth of Karbala alive, shining truth on the lies Yazid told. She also shows that believing in yourself and your own truth is essential, even when it's hard. Muharram helps us remember that doing the right thing is always worth it, no matter the challenges. Thank you for listening. Salawat.
That was beautiful. You and your sister did an amazing job. Jazakallah. Please a loud salawat. Now I'm going to ask Hussein uncle to please come up to do a marshia.
Assalamualaikum. Prophet Muhammad Salawat. The martyrdom of Imam Hussein. ये दास्तान गम सुनो हजरत हुसैन की, करता हूँ मैं बयान शहादत हुसैन की। ये दास्तान गम सुनो हजरत हुसैन की, करता हूँ मैं बयान शहादत हुसैन की। जो फातिमा के आंखों के तारे थे वो हुसैन, जो मुस्तफा के राज दुलारे थे वो हुसैन, जो लाडले थे शेर खुदा के वही हुसैन, जो राह पर थे एले वफा के वही हुसैन, जिनको नबी गले से लगाते थे वो हुसैन, कांधों पे अपने जिनको बिठाते थे वो हुसैन। चाहे खुदा से बख्शिश उम्मत हुसैन ने, बदले में की कबूल शहादत हुसैन ने। ऐसी पड़ी नमाज के सजदे में सर दिया, हक के चमन को खून से सैराब कर दिया। ये शान अल्लाह अल्लाह ये अजमत हुसैन की, करता हूँ मैं बयान शहादत हुसैन की। ये दास्तान गम सुनो हजरत हुसैन की, करता हूँ मैं बयान शहादत हुसैन की। खत लिखा कूफियों ने हुसैन आप आइए, आप आके लाज दीन खुदा की बचाइए। निकले हुसैन घर से बड़े बांक पिन के साथ, बेटे भतीजे भांजे भाई बहन के साथ। जब साहिल फुरात पे पहुंचा एक काफिला, तो नहर पर खड़ा मिला लश्कर यजीद का। इब्ने जियाद शिमर वहीं आए सामने, कहने लगे वो दोनों सितमगर हुसैन से, तस्लीम कीजिए आप खिलाफत यजीद की, चाहे जो खैर कीजिए बैयत यजीद की। बोले हुसैन मुझको शहादत कबूल है, लेकिन न तख्त जुल्म की बैयत कबूल है। शर्माई मौत देख कर हिम्मत हुसैन की, करता हूँ मैं बयान शहादत हुसैन की। ये दास्तान गम सुनो हजरत हुसैन की, करता हूँ मैं बयान शहादत हुसैन की। फिर जालिमों ने मेरे पे पैरा लगा दिया, पानी नाले बैत नबी को जरा दिया। पानी को तरस साकी कौसर के लाडले, यूं भूखी प्यास 3 दिनों तक सभी रहे। ऐसे में हमला कर दिया फौज यजीद ने, देखे गए ना हुर्फ सितम अहले जुल्म के। वो आमिले हुसैन से लश्कर को छोड़कर, पहले शहीद हुए नामे हुसैन पर। अब्बास के भी मेल पे बाजू हुए कलम, राह खुदा में निकला अंबार हक कदम। قاسم کے خون سے شادی کا جوڑا بنا کفن حق پر شہید ہو گئے فرزند یہ حسن اکبر کا سینہ پڑ گیا ورشی سے علامہ یہ حق پہ ہم سبھی پیغمبر نے دے دی جان زینب کے وال اول محمد نے سر دیا ماموں پہ اپنے آپ کو قربان کر دیا ایک تیر کھا کے ازگر معصوم چل بسے اس بازی حسین نے مظلوم چل بسے یہ کربلا میں لگ گئی دولت حسین کی کرتا ہوں میں بیان شہادت حسین کی یہ داستان غم سنو حضرت حسین کی کرتا ہوں میں بیان شہادت حسین کی جب جانے ساری ایک پر ہوئے فدا کوئی بچانا آدمی مار کے سوا بکھری پلاش حرف ہوا وقت عصر کا میرے نماز عصر ہوئے ابن مرتضی سجدے میں سر جو حضرت شبیر کا جھکا ایسے مبارش نے شبیر پر کیا ادھر کے لال بھوکے پیاسے ہوئے شہید سجدے میں مصطفیٰ کے نواسے ہوئے شہید پھر ظالموں نے جسم سے سر کو کیا گیا نیزے پہ سر چڑھا دیا حضرت حسین کا عابد کے ہاتھ پاؤں میں زنجیر ڈال دی زینب کے سر سے شملے میں چادر بچھی لی کہ کربلا میں اہل بیت پہ ایسا ستم ہوا تڑپے زمین آسمان دریا بھی رو پڑا دل سے نہ جائے گا غم شبیر حشر تک ہر دل کرے گا ماتم شبیر حشر تک زندہ رکھے گا حق کو یہ جذبہ حسین کا آئے گا یاد آخری سجدہ حسین کا یاد آئے گی پیام عبادت حسین کی کرتا ہوں میں بیان شہادت حسین کی یہ داستان غم سنو حضرت حسین کی کرتا ہوں میں بیان شہادت حسین کی شہادت حسین کی شہادت حسین کی الصلوات بعد الفاتحة
Thank you so much, Hussein Uncle. That was beautiful. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Once again, it is my privilege as president of OIL to welcome you here for our 10th night in our lecture series this Muharram. Looking around, I have honestly never seen so many people here. It is really humbling that you all made a choice to be here tonight. We're very thankful on behalf of the board. Well, we are gathered here in Toronto, one of the most diverse cities in the world. We acknowledge that we are on unceded Indigenous land, traditionally stewarded by the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. As we embark on this time of Muharram, a time of remembrance and spiritual learning, let us also remember our collective responsibility towards reconciliation and stand in solidarity with all our First Nations. Just a couple of announcements before we get started. We are broadcasting again live on YouTube. Alhamdulillah, we're seeing our viewership increase every single day. Please let others know, family and friends that are not here and wish to be part of our lecture series, that they can definitely join online. Tonight's Tabarak is sponsored by Bande Khuda, and I didn't get a chance to write it in, but also the Nurullah group. Please let's recite Surah Fatiha for Marhum Parvez Walji and all Marhumin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And once again, please we have our WhatsApp group. I see a lot of new faces, people that I haven't seen, over this series. Please ensure that you connect with us via WhatsApp. Just go ahead and scan the QR code. It's a great way to keep in contact with us, understand all our content that we're pushing out, and feel a lot more engaged with our membership, rather than the traditional email. So please take a moment just to scan the QR code there. Our Ashura Day program is now finalized. We will have registration beginning at 10:45. I know I mentioned 10 to 2 yesterday. We had to ensure that our lecture was after the namaz. Go back. Go back. Is that going back? There we go. Yeah, so you can see our breakdown of the full schedule here. So the registration does begin at 10:45. 11:15, we plan to begin with Amal. So Brother Hussein Darcy will be leading us through that. Inshallah, we will have Niyaz at the end around 3 o'clock. We do have a lot of registrations for tomorrow. MashaAllah, we will have a very good turnout. So please try to come as early as you can. Ensure you get a parking spot. But this is our plan for tomorrow, inshallah. Please recite dua shifa for all the names here. So Brother Mirza Alam, Dr. Abdul Aziz Sachadina, Sister Zarina Hirani, Sister Zareen Sajan, Sister Anjum Karmali, Sister Hila Shah, and Brother Basim Malik, and all those that need our prayers. Please, Bismillah. Now I'm going to ask Murta's uncle just to come up and say a few words.
Check, this is good. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you all of you. I see a lot of faces here, some new ones. MashaAllah, what a good turnout. Thank you all for joining us tonight on this 10-part lecture series with Sheikh Yasin. On this grievous night of the Eve of Ashura, I stand before you truly humbled. Truly humbled because you have continued to support us and believing in the Allah's ideology. Thank you for your unwavering support and your generosity, without which none of our programs would be possible, including this one. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the board. So on behalf of the All Board and the support group, I take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank you, all of you, and all of your active participation during these sacred evenings as we extend our condolences to the family of the Holy Prophet. Thank you all who have donated to our worthy cause, and for those who haven't, please do consider donating to help us meet our expenditure targets. You may also donate in person at the front desk, or you may kindly donate us on the website. At this juncture, I'd like to acknowledge our All Board and our volunteers who have worked tirelessly to make this program a success. So thank you, volunteers, and thank you, the board. I also want to thank Sheikh Yasin for accepting our invitation to OIL, for your very insightful lectures, Sheikh Yasin, and thoughtful, provoking lectures. Thank you also for adjusting your schedule to accommodate our request. I know you're coming a month later, but thank you again. And on behalf of the board, we truly thank you and appreciate it. So on another note, some of you may not know, but I have a true connection with Jafri Community Center. I'm the treasurer for Jafri Support Services. I'm also the chair for the Welfare Committee at JSS. So in the event, so you can see on the slide, about a month, I think it was November of last year, we, after a lot of planning, almost a year of planning, we set up the Jaffrey Support Services Therapy Clinic. We launched the JSSTC in November last year for all our community members who require counseling. Alhamdulillah, the clinic has been a real success as we fill in a desperately needed void in our community. The initial consulting is free, should you decide to take advantage of this therapy clinic. And subsequent therapy is available at a reduced rate of $75, but if you can afford it, there's a reduced scale to the point that can be $0. So please do consider for you or your loved ones, if you need counseling services, the clinic is open to all community members. I'm also, as I indicated, the chair for welfare. So if you or anybody that you know needs short-term financial help in terms of food cards or rent assistance or sometimes medical assistance, please reach out to me. I'd rather help our own community members as much as I can. So the food cards, we have a stringent application process, but once you qualify for the welfare support, you'll be given to you on a case-by-case basis. And in some cases, we've gone as much as 6 months to support. So please do consider coming to us if you need help. Once again, thank you for all of you attending, and thank you again for your unwavering support. Inshallah, programs are already, for Ramadan. The program is already in process. We're in the process of selecting a new speaker, and inshallah, we'll see you in Ramadan again. Thank you again. Salawat.
Thank you, Murtada. It's now my privilege to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, Sheikh Mohammed Yasin Devji. Raised in Toronto, Sheikh Mohammed Yasin migrated to the holy city of Qom in 2006 to pursue Islamic studies in the Hawza. In 2010, he took a 2-year leave to study the Arabic language in the Sayyida Zainab district of Damascus. In 2012, he returned to Qom to continue his seminary studies, where he obtained a BA in Islamic philosophy and mysticism. He continued studying Islamic philosophy, mysticism, jurisprudence, and the principles of jurisprudence to the advanced level. He is also a registered psychotherapist. Please let's all recite a loud salawat to welcome Sheikh to the stage.
Right, can you hear me in the back? We good? All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين لا سيما خاتمهم وأفضلهم محمد مصطفى صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى أهل بيت الطهارة لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين الحجة ابن الحسن أجر الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله
وعلى الأرواح التي هلت بفنائك عليك منا جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله الآخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. Everyone please join me. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن التقويم ثم رددناه أسفل السافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجر غير ممنون. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. My elders, my dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In keeping with our pattern and the flow that we have been following every night, this dedication is both heartfelt, it is also difficult. And you'll understand why. Tonight's dedication, tonight's lecture, is dedicated to each and every one of you. Tonight's lecture is dedicated to my community both locally and my community both internationally. We have a narration attributed to Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, where he says, Rahimallahu imra'an ya'rifu min ain fi ain ila ain. He says, may Allah have mercy on the one who knows from where he came, where he is, and where he is headed. Please recite a salawat. As for the from where, Toronto is and always will be my home. There is not a time in my life where I don't remember many of the faces I see in front of me. Sometimes when the youngsters ask me, how long have you known my parents? I said, well, there's not a time I remember where I didn't know them. 20 years ago, I embarked on a journey. I left everything that was familiar to me. I left family, I left friends behind, and I embarked on a journey. Many times people ask me, they say, Sheikh, why did you go to Hausa? And I'm very honest with them. I tell them that, if you're looking for some inspirational story, that I was inspired to pack up and go and learn and increase myself and all of that, so you'll be disappointed. I left this city as a very broken man. It was a very difficult time in my life, and in many ways, I tell myself this now, that I needed a change of scenery. But the reality is that even being here, even being in the familiarity had become too painful for me. And so I took a chance and said, you know what? What do I have to lose at this point? And I went. I'm grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because that could have gone many, many different ways and could have ended many different ways. But Allah saw it fit in His mercy, for which certainly I'm not worthy, the levels of mercy, and He took me on a journey. He took me on a journey of self-discovery. He took me on a journey of discovering things around me. And many things fell into place. But through all the time I was away from home, there was never a moment that I forgot about my home. There was never a moment where I didn't carry Toronto in my heart. There was never a moment where I didn't carry the friends, the families, the very real connection and the love with me. And so to come back, I won't forget, it was, I think it was a Thursday. My mom sent me a WhatsApp, and she said, a few months back, and she said to me, she said, Sister Anar Ibrahim from Oil is trying to get a hold of you. Shall I give her your number? I said, okay, sure. And from there, a conversation ensued. And then I had the great pleasure of meeting the board of Oil. And I cannot thank the board of Oil enough. Dr. Zubaina, Sister Anar, Brother Akil, Brother Jabir, Murtaza uncle, and of course, Abdulaziz uncle. I cannot thank them enough, really cannot thank them enough, because we were, though I was from here, we were still very unknown to each other. Unknown because it was 20 years removed. They perhaps knew me, who I was 20 years ago. I perhaps knew Oil, what Oil was 20 years ago. You get where I'm going with this. But the point is, we had a very beautiful conversation, and from there, things ensued. And I'm deeply, deeply grateful to the board at Oil because, for a number of reasons. First of all, they allowed me to live out a childhood dream. As I told you in my first lecture, when I left Toronto, it was always my dream, my heartfelt dream, to come home and to speak to my people. You are my people. And secondly, because they took a chance on me. They really did take a chance on me. I was an unknown. You know, they say out of sight, out of mind. I literally disappeared for 20 years. So for them to take that chance on me, I'm eternally grateful. And I hope in my heart of hearts that that chance that they took on me, I was able to deliver to them. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Hal jaza'ul ihsan illa al-ihsan. And the board of Oil did a great ihsan on me by inviting me and allowing me to live out my childhood dream. And so I put forth this as an ihsan to them and to you all. Please recite a salawat. I'm grateful to each and every one of you who have come every single night, for those of you who have come some nights, for those of you listening online, for the love and encouragement you have shown me through these 10 nights. There's no love like the love you get from home. And the love that I have gotten in loads from my elders, to my contemporaries, to the children, has touched me in ways and has transformed me in ways that I cannot even qualify at this point. But I thank you all for the love. You really, really have shown me a lot of love, a lot of love. And it makes me happy, and it reinforces the fact that this will always be my home. One of the things that I've tried to do, and it's easier to do this when you're with your own people, especially when you're at home. And one of the things I've tried to do through the lecture series is to share my journey with you, is to share all parts of me with you. Not in a misguided effort of self-promotion, but in an attempt to make it okay for each and every one of us to share each other's journeys with each other, to share our vulnerabilities with each other, to create the space and to create the opportunities for connection. Because connection between us as human beings is so important. As we talked about last night, many times we get caught up in the vertical relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes we neglect the horizontal. And the thing is, the horizontal relationship, the relationship between all of us, is no less important, because that is part of worship. And so if I am to sit here in my position and ask you to be vulnerable and to ask to have that connection and to put yourself forward and to bring those parts forward, it would be very hypocritical of me and against my values if I didn't sit up here and do it myself and lead by example. And so it is my hope it really is my hope for my people, my community, my ummah, that these conversations are not ended after the night's end, but these are just the beginning of conversations, because that vulnerability, that connection, that honesty, that ability to have those difficult conversations are only going to benefit us, not only in our horizontal dimension, but they will also transform in our vertical relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Please recite a salawat. And because I have the unique position of being an insider with my community, I will say to you today that please continue. Please continue. Let this to be a starting point. The things that we have discussed, I would say we haven't even scratched the surface with these things. But please continue. We live in a time today where resources are readily available, both human resources and both in resources online and everywhere. And it is again, as an insider, it is my advice and my humble invitation to my community that we have done well when it comes to our physical infrastructures, when it comes to our capital projects. And I know that the efforts are there, and to what degree I'm unaware, but I still would invite my community to continue to invest in the human resources and our human infrastructure. It's our humanity, it's us as people who make a community. We can build the most beautiful centers, we can have all the things, but if we don't fill them with human beings, with genuine, authentic, human, spiritual beings, then they will only ring hollow and just be buildings at the end of the day. Please recite a salawat. And finally, as we move forward in our respective journeys as individuals and as we move forward in our journey as a community, it's important that the things we pick up along the way, we also do actualize. A friend of mine who's in the audience tonight, I know she hasn't coined the phrase, but she said a nice thing to me. She knows who she is. It was in a conversation with regards to how we were raised by our parents and how we raise our kids, right? And she said to me, she said, our parents raised us in a way that they knew how to raise us with the information that was available to them. And Allah bless them for that. But now, we as parents and grandparents moving forward, we also have information and we also have knowledge to allow us to become better parents. So the adage says, when we know better, we do better. So I invite each and every one of us, as we continue to know better, we continue to push ourselves to do better. Please recite a salawat. And my final gratitude goes out to my family, especially my brother Rizwan, my sister-in-law Naila, my three nieces, who have grounded me in this process. This doesn't happen if I'm staying in a hotel room by myself. I don't get to be myself. I don't have the courage to be human if I'm staying in a hotel room. But to live in my brother's house with my nieces, with everything that comes along with that, even the rides over here, I think they were feeling bad that I needed quiet on the way here. But no, all of that, what came with that is what grounded me and gave me the courage to open myself up. In fact, today, my niece Amina, who's sitting right in front of me, came to me at the bottom of the stairs and said, Ada, you know what? It's going to be all right. Just take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath. And once it's all over, we'll sit down and meditate. So these kinds of things have been, you can't put a price on these things. So I would like to thank them. My sister and my niece Sana as well too, flying down from Dubai to come and listen to me and to be part of this very special moment in my life as well too. So my gratitude to each and every one of you. I could make this whole speech about gratitude, but we'll stop there for now. Please recite a salawat. So we began a journey on the first night of Muharram, and we have now arrived at the conclusion of this journey, the night of Ashura. Tomorrow is the day of Ashura. Tomorrow there will be no intellectual discourse in that way as we commemorate the tragedy of Karbala, the day of Ashura, and the night of Sham-e Ghariban. So tonight we will conclude. We began to conclude last night, and so tonight is just wrapping things up and tying up any loose ends that remain. We began a journey where we looked at the fitrah, that wonderful gift and that wonderful mercy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us, our humanity, the very core and foundation of our humanity, that thing that keeps us connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And wherever we find ourselves on the spectrum, whether our fitrahs are open or whether our fitrahs are asleep, the connection never goes. So that mercy is a mercy that is always available to us. And the more we refine ourselves, the more the fitrah is awake, and the more that connection is robust, and the more that connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is adding value to our lives. That fitrah also within it, that connection also comes with the gift of the virtues, even in potentia, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. He explicitly identifies these virtues in the Quran. They are taqwa, they are sabr, they are tawakkul, they are qist, they are ihsan, they are tawbah, and they are tahara. We looked at 6 of them, and we took a detour and looked at ukhuwah just to see what it would look like if we took that inner work, and what would it look like on the outside. We talked about how when these qualities come together and when they manifest and are resonating at a high level, we reach the station of what is called al-insan al-kamil, the true and the whole human being. We talked about how the concept of insan al-kamil is not an abstract concept that is inaccessible to each and every one of us. No, it is accessible to each and every one of us, so long as we are developing these particular things inside of us. We talked about what it means to be completely human. Complete humanity isn't about eliminating our struggles, emotions, or our human needs. It's about bringing every aspect of our human experience into a conscious relationship with Allah's love. It means feeling deeply while trusting completely. Like our beloved Prophet taught us when he wept for his son Ibrahim, while at the same time holding that consciousness and accepting Allah's will. The ability to hold multiple emotions inside of us. That ambivalence, as we call it in the psychotherapy world, and that godly ambivalence, as we talked about, rooted in the divine. Serving others while staying connected to our source. Like Amir al-Mu'mineen taught us last night, that giving in charity while also in the act of worship. Acting courageously while surrendering outcomes. Maximum effort, full surrender. Tawakkul. Maximum effort, full surrender. Like the companions, choosing truth over safety. Islam begins, it is in the middle, and it ends with surrender. This is the meaning of Islam. Islam, lexically and terminologically, come back to surrender. It is our ability to surrender to something far more powerful and far greater than us, but to also understand that in that power and in that glory and in that majesty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala holds over us, for us, it's only love and mercy that comes forth. And we talked about that love and mercy encompasses also being accountable, because love is not complete without accountability. But at the end of the day, to have that much majesty over us and to only treat us with love because of his love for us is something very powerful and something very liberating. Loving fully whilst holding everything lightly, knowing that everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every virtue that we've looked at, we've been preparing and exploring to work towards integration. What is that integration? It began with the fitrah. It showed us our authentic foundation, that we're designed for this completeness. We went to taqwa, where it was an awakened consciousness that includes all of life, not just formal worship. We looked at sabr, the built-in resilience that stays loving even when everything shakes around us. We looked at tawakkul, which freed us to act boldly, exerting ourselves fully, while also leaving the outcomes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who holds the best of outcomes for us. We looked at qist. Qist taught us how to protect everyone's dignity starting by protecting our own God-given dignity. We looked at Uhuwa, which created families of choice, where souls can be real and can be supported. We looked at Ihsan, and Ihsan, how it showed us excellence flows from presence and not performance. We looked at Tawbah, and Tawbah, how Tawbah gave us the courage to keep returning home when we find ourselves drifting away. All this integration taught us that loving Allah and serving creation are one movement. When these virtues integrate completely, something beautiful happens. We stop compartmentalizing our lives into spiritual and human parts. Everything becomes sacred. Why? Because we bring consciousness into all of it. Our work becomes worship. Our relationships become service. Our struggles become opportunity for growth. Our joy becomes gratitude. Our entire lives become one continuous conversation with the Beloved. Please recite a salawat. Please recite a salawat. We looked at the pitfalls. We looked at the pitfalls of trying to be perfect as opposed to complete. And there's a crucial difference, right? Perfectionism says you must never struggle, never feel overwhelmed, never make mistakes, never need help from others. Completeness or wholeness says to us, you can feel everything deeply while staying connected to the ones you love, especially God. You can struggle whilst growing. You can need others while also serving them. You can be beautifully and consciously human. Perfectionism wounds us. Why? Because we become afraid of our own feelings, because our emotions seem or are labeled as unspiritual. We hide our struggles when Allah wants to walk through them with us. We judge others harshly because we're so critical of ourselves. We miss out on the joy of growth because every mistake feels like a failure. We become isolated because no one can live up to these impossible standards. And this leads to the exhaustion of false spirituality. What is that exhaustion? Never to feel difficult emotions, never to grieve losses and just trust Allah, never ask for help and just rely on Allah, never enjoy simple pleasures, focus only on the afterlife, never to express our needs, to just be grateful for whatever we have. This isn't spirituality, this is spiritual death. It cuts us off from the very humanity through which Allah wants to express His love. I repeat, it cuts us off from the very humanity. Our humanity is an expression of Allah's love. Complete humanity tells us, feel everything with consciousness, process everything with love, respond to everything from our highest selves while staying real about our current experiences. Thank you very much. Please recite a salawat. There are more points here, but we'll move, as time is short, we'll move to our case study. Our case study, we've been looking at case studies every night. Our case study will come from Imam al-Hussein, and I just want to say that we gather in these nights for the love of Imam al-Hussein. That is what brings us together. In Arabic it is said, Al-Hussein yajma'una. Yani Hussein brings us together. He brings us together so that we can remember. And for me, the relationship with Imam al-Hussein has been profound in my journey. It's been profound because looking at Imam al-Hussein, looking at his life, and even looking at the day of Ashura, my takeaway from his life is the many, many faces of Allah that he shows. And what I mean by the many, many faces is the many faces of his own humanity that he shows, whether on the day of Ashura or even through the course of his life. And for me, that humanization of Imam al-Hussein resonated with me deeply and increased my love for him. Because even in expressing his humanity and showing us the many faces of God, all of it is an invitation to return back to God. And at the end of the day, it is God that we worship. And all of that is encompassed within the sphere of the broad sphere of worship as we defined. And so as we gather in these gatherings have been going on for centuries. And it's important that while we have intellectual discourse in its place, and it is important, but at the heart of it, we're here because we love Imam Hussein. And when we love Imam Hussein, that comes from a place of feelings and that comes from a place of emotions. And we've been talking all these nights about how recognizing our emotions. And so I share with you and I invite you that for me, Imam al-Hussein became the gateway to understanding my emotions, became the gateway for becoming aware of my emotions, and became a gateway of how to manage and learn how to integrate my emotions in a healthy and positive way. Please recite a salawat. So for our case study, I invite you to take your mind's eye to the plains of Karbala, and it is the night of Ashura. Death circles the camp like a predator waiting to pounce, right? Imam al-Hussein that night goes from tent to tent, checking up on his family, checking up on his companions, just to make sure that everything is okay. He goes quietly. His heart breaks seeing the fear in his children's eyes, the worry on the faces of those he loves. This is complete humanity, feeling the full weight of his choices, of what his choices will cost others. Not hiding from the pain, but bringing it into a conscious relationship with his mission. In the darkness, he encounters a companion of his, Nafi' bin Hilal, one of the devoted companions, making rounds to check the camp security. Nafi' is startled to see the Imam alone walking on this night. The Imam calls out, "Is that you, Nafi'?" O son of the Messenger of Allah, yes, it is me. What has brought you out at this hour? The Imam inquires. Nafi' expresses and confesses his deep concern. My master, seeing you walk alone toward the enemy camp in this darkness fills me with fear for your safety. The Imam shares his own human concerns with Nafi'. Nafi', I came to check our defensive positions. I fear our companions might be attacked from behind, or that some might waver in their resolve. Do we see the beautiful integration here? He's not presenting himself above human concerns, the Imam that is. He's sharing his very real worries with his companion, right? About strategy, about people's safety, about the very human fear that some might, about the very human fear, and also that some may not be able to bear what's coming. Then comes a moment that shows it all. The Imam, the grandson of the Prophet, this man who is revered in the heavens, takes Nafi's hand into his own. He says, Nafi, with tenderness, this is the night. It has veiled you. You can take it as cover and leave. In fact, go between those mountains until you reach your people. This is complete humanity in action. Why? Because the Imam feels genuine love for his companion and wants him to be safe. He honors Nafi's freedom. How? By offering a real choice to him without any pressure. Number two, he still maintains his mission whilst caring for the individuals involved in his mission. Number four, he shows vulnerability by admitting his own concerns. Number five, he creates safety for an honest response rather than performed loyalty. Nafi's response reveals what happens when true complete humanity inspires complete humanity. In the world we live in today, with all the hatred is perpetuating hatred. Hatred is perpetuating hatred. The way to combat hatred, perpetuating hatred, is through love, is through kindness, is through mercy. And it begins with ourselves, being kind to ourselves, and loving those around us. It is a difficult journey. It is a very steep mountain to climb. I recognize that. But if we begin with ourselves, in time, we'll see that will spread to our families, that will spread to our societies. And inshallah, with Allah's help and tawfiq, it spreads to everywhere we are. Nafi responds to him, may my mother be bereaved of me. By Allah, I bought this sword for 1,000 dirhams and this horse for 1,000 more. By him who has graced me with your presence, I will never part from you until both my sword and horse are exhausted in your defense. This image, Imam takes Nafi's hand again and they walk hand in hand back to the camp. This image, walking hand in hand through darkness towards an uncertain dawn, becomes the perfect symbol of complete humanity, of true and authentic human moment. They are not walking as master and servant or as perfect spiritual being and flawed human. They're walking as complete human beings who have chosen each other for divine purpose while supporting each other through the darkness with consciousness, courage, and love. Please recite a salawat. What this sacred exchange teaches our hearts. Number one, vulnerability creates connection. You see how Imam's honesty about his concerns didn't diminish Nafi's respect. In fact, it deepened it. Complete humanity includes sharing our real worries and fears with the people we trust. This creates intimacy, not distance. Number two, love offers freedom. The Imam's love for Nafi meant offering him genuine choice, even when that choice might cause him personal pain. Complete humanity means loving people enough to let them choose freely, not manipulating them through guilt or through pressure. Number three, leadership through authentic care. The Imam's authority wasn't threatened by showing concern or admitting uncertainty. Real spiritual leadership comes through authentic care for others' well-being, not through pretending to have everything under control. And number four, integration through pressure. Notice how he maintained both divine consciousness, his mission, and his human consciousness, his care for individuals simultaneously. Complete humanity doesn't choose between spiritual purpose and human love. It integrates them perfectly. And number five, the power of walking together. The hand-in-hand image teaches us that the spiritual journey isn't a solo climb towards perfection, but a walk together towards divine purpose, supporting each other through darkness and with conscious love. Please recite a salawat. Some simple steps to move towards this completeness, and then inshallah we will conclude with the eulogy and the series for the night. Number one, honor our full human experience. Like the Imam sharing his real concerns with Nafi, practice including our strengths, fears, and uncertainties in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Way back at the beginning, we talked about how we should present ourselves in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As it is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees us for what we are. He's waiting for us to become aware of ourselves and to bring that awareness into that relationship so that it creates a meaningful and a deep relationship. Say to Allah, you see what I am worried about in this situation. Help me bring consciousness to my own concern. Number two, create safety for others' realness. Following the Imam's example of offering Nafi genuine choice, practice making it safe for people to be honest about their struggles and limitations without judgment. Number three, rather than compartmentalize, bring the consciousness we develop into prayer and our daily interactions. Let our spiritual practices inform how we treat our families, not be separate from it. As we said yesterday, our prayers and our worship should integrate into our consciousness such that our prayers and our worship influences the way we treat each other as human beings, and not a dichotomy. How many times do we see those who are taking care of their worship, and when you look in their private life and their families, abusers, neglectors? No, our worship has to integrate. It should inform, and it should go both ways to increase in our worship. Let our love for Allah flow through Let our love for Allah flow through love for His creation. Number 4, a walk hand in hand. Like the Imam and Nafi, find people who will walk with us towards truth and purpose. Build relationships where we can support each other's spiritual growth while being real with each other about our struggles. Not setting bars for ourselves that, okay, in our minds, I need to reach this stage to have a relationship with this person who has reached this stage. You see the problem with that? We perceive that we have to get to this stage, and then we're making assumptions about the person we want to form a relationship with. Where is the realness? Number 5, feel everything, trust everything. Practice the integration the Imam demonstrated, feeling the full weight of the human experience whilst maintaining trust in Allah's wisdom and love. Please recite a salawat. In the contemporary context, some examples might include being honest about our anxiety while still continuing to pray, admitting our mistakes whilst committing to growth, expressing our needs whilst serving others, feeling grief whilst maintaining hope, struggling with doubts while still choosing faith, struggling with doubts while still choosing faith, seeking therapy whilst deepening our spiritual practice. This application, when we bring to our communities, can perhaps look like this: making it safe for people to share real struggles with each other, integrating spiritual practice with social service, supporting each other's growth without demanding perfection, celebrating progress, not just arrival, creating spaces where tears and laughter, questions and faith, struggle and hope, doubts, all of it can coexist. Every part of our messy humanity, every part of the things perhaps we might be embarrassed about, all the parts that we might be triumphant about, bring it all into the space. Bring it all into the space and make it safe for each other, for us to coexist in that space, to be in that space, to see the God in one another, and to understand that each and every one of us carries that light of God, not just the perceived way of what we think the light of God is, but truly what the light of God is. Please recite a salawat. So it is my hope that this introduction becomes a journey for both all of us as individuals and as a community to continue to explore this and to continue to look at how we can continue to return to our humanity. Because reaching spiritual heights, as we said in the beginning, reaching spiritual heights will not happen until we return back to our humanity, return back to ourselves. Tonight is the night of Ashura, and on this night, traditionally in our communities, we honor the youngest martyr. It was the final stand. The banners of the companions had fallen. The sons, the brothers, the friends, all lay beneath the dust. Only one remained in the tent who had yet to give his life. According to narrations, there are three views. There are three views on the infant son of Imam al-Hussein in the earlier sources. One view, which is not very common, is that he was born on the day of Ashura. Another view is that he was six months old on the day of Ashura. Imam al-Hussein walked into the camp, his clothes bloodied, his face pale with grief. He looked upon Ruqayya, he looked upon Suqayna, he looked upon the women of the Prophet's household. Then from the cradle came a weak cry. It was Ali al-Asghar, the infant son, also known as Abdullah al-Radi. Bring him to me, the Imam said. Even he has a share in this sacrifice. He took the child in his arms, wrapped him in cloth, and pressed him close to his chest. Then he walked out towards the enemy lines, not with a sword and not in defiance, but with a plea. O people, if you will not grant me mercy, then have mercy on this child. You will see how he writhes from thirst. Please give him a sip of water. There was silence in the enemy camp. Even the hearts of some softened. But then Harmala was called by Umar bin Sa'ad, cut off the last words of Hussein. He took an arrow and aimed it at the throat of the infant and released the arrow. The arrow tore through the baby's neck and pierced the arm of his father. The child did not cry. He only trembled and died. Imam al-Hussein looked down, eyes wide in disbelief. His hands were filled with not rebellion or vengeance, but the blood of his infant son. Oh Allah, it is enough for me that you see what has been done to me. He took the child back, walking in silence. Blood trickled down his arms, and then he knelt behind the tents. There was no coffin. There was no grave. With his own hands, he dug a tiny grave in the sand and placed the infant within it. The world is not worthy of you, my son, he said. He covered the grave with his cloak, then pressed his forehead to the ground. He wept with sound, and the wind of Karbala bore witness that day to the greatest act of complete humanity ever known to mankind. Ala la'natullahi ala al-qawm al-zalimeen, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un.
So just before we have Noha,